That's behind Seek.
Okay. You seek.
No, I'm hiding.
No!
I'm already hiding. You have to find me.
Okay.
You can't even do the bit, man. There was a brief period when I first started playing this game where they implemented it so that whenever you left, disconnected, or had to rejoin because of a server reset, your monster chance would be saved. However, this was removed because people complained about it. I genuinely don't understand why someone would complain about it. Like, why? Because someone joined your lobby with a higher monster chance when you're about to play as monster? Sure, that might be a con, but I definitely think the pros supersede it. There have been way too many instances that I personally had to deal with during like server resets, my internet failing on me, or simply because I wanted AFK for a brief moment in the middle of a match. I always thought it was nice that you didn't feel like you had to commit to a server just to play one singular monster match, that you could grind a few survivor matches, take a break, and then come back. Pretty much everyone I've talked about this agrees that keeping monster chance would just be healthy for the game. And the fact that this was removed only because some people complained about it, I feel like there should be a vote where people can choose if this should be implemented back in or it can stay the way it is now. I feel like with the amount of maps and monsters in the game, it is pretty clear to me that some monsters have really good maps and some have really bad maps. For example, Uncle Samsonite's dance off ability dominating Phasma's Frights because of how small that map is. Okay, maybe not anymore because he's getting reworked, but whatever. EXE Forest King has Phasma's Frights as one of their best maps due to how small the map is and how effective EXE's traps can be on that map. And then you have a map like The Forest, where monsters like EXE, and especially Baldi, really struggle. Some maps that could be bad for a specific monster could be good for another. And it's not like a slight advantage or disadvantage. I'm talking about like, wow, you actually cannot get any value out of your EXE traps or notebooks on Forest. And you can get insane value out of their traps or Forest King's heads on Phasma's Frights. Now, what I'm suggesting isn't having the monster choose any map in the game. No, that would be dumb and would probably make it that only 3 maps are ever played. No, what I'm suggesting is that the monster has up to maybe like 2 or 3 maps that they can choose from. And the maps shown are the ones that haven't been played recently in the server, which would also prevent the map having a set map cycle. Because as of right now, if you play in a server long enough to have played every map of the game, you can actually tell what map you're going to be getting next, because every single server has a set map cycle. This doesn't have to be exclusively connected to the addition of the map selection screen, so you could have it that there's just an extra timer for a screen so that you and your teammate can choose whatever you're both going to play as, but it would probably work better with the map selection screen, as there doesn't have to be a separate screen just to know what monster your teammate is playing. Probably the least important quality of life change, but I mean, could be neat. I personally don't really care for keybinds. I think the keybinds for the game work pretty well for me, but I can imagine those who want to change some keybinds, maybe because they have faulty keys and want to rebind them to keys that do work, or because they want something more comfortable. I don't know. Just seems like something that people would probably appreciate. Yeah, look. You might be thinking, I thought this was a quality of life changes video. Shouldn't you be suggesting on how to make it better? Well, I'm not here to talk about the balancing issues with these 2 game modes, because to me, and the point of the video, has nothing to do with balance, and more about the actual health of the game. And quite frankly, these 2 game modes are not healthy for the game. Or to be more specific, they're not fun. And no, it has nothing to do with how it's implemented. I think just the idea itself just doesn't work with the game. Maybe there is a way they could tweak the game mode to make it healthy, but I don't think that's possible. I think all that will do is make it more balanced, which these game modes definitely need balancing tweaks at the very least. However, I'm not just going to leave it at that. I'm actually going to explain why I think these game modes need to be gutted out of the game, and compare these 2 game modes to the default. Now, the problem isn't necessarily that these two game modes are played incredibly different than Solo Monster and Double Trouble, but rather that playing as Survivor in these game modes has incredibly low engagement. In Solo Monster, as a survivor, all you're really doing is just trying to survive, and the objectives you have, which are totally optional, are there to keep you from sitting in one spot and actually move around the map. You are meant to try survive and are obligated to move around the map when doing so. However, there is one key difference between Solo versus Collectathon and Strongholds. You don't have to rely on teammates. This is something that monsters hate dealing with in Double Trouble, but when they eventually add it so that you can choose who your teammate is, aka probably a friend you're playing with, this essentially becomes a non-issue. Again, doing my best to not talk about the horrendous balance issues in Collectathon and Strongholds. Like, it does not handle big servers well. The threshold in Strongholds is barely tweaked when you have a full lobby or a half a lobby, and having 250 rings to do in Collectathon versus 400 rings plays such a little role just because the map size itself doesn't get changed, meaning you're probably still going to get all the rings done roughly at the same amount of time, which results in making it almost impossible for the monster to win in a full lobby. Did I mention that some monsters are just way too weak and others are way too strong in Collectathon? Yeah, take EXE for example. You could straight up just set like 5 traps next to rings and just play camp and win. And because survivors want to escape and don't want to get targeted and tunneled to death, they're gonna have to wait for their teammates to sacrifice themselves. Also, yeah, playing Survivor in Collectathon against most monsters is incredibly unfun. If a monster wants you dead, they can just do that by simply outstaminaing you. There are way too many issues with these game modes balance-wise that even if they were all tweaked, all adjusted, all fixed, it still wouldn't stop the fact that's just not fun. In Collectathon, you either sprint in bursts so you can save your stamina so that the monster has to waste maximum time to try kill you, or play as a good teammate, actually rush the rings and get killed if the monster is even remotely next to you. And in Strongholds, all you do is fucking stand still and wait for the next ring to spawn, which could spawn in the same spot, or wait for the monster to force you out, in which you either rotate to the next point or you hang around nearby until the monster leaves, chasing somebody else. It's just not fun. And it's mostly not fun for the survivors, but it's also just not fun for monsters either. I genuinely believe the best thing the game could do is remove these game modes permanently and either try add new game modes or not add any game modes at all. I feel like it'd be neat to have the chance be based off monster wipes, where the chance gets increased with every match the monster doesn't wipe out the entire lobby, and decrease whenever a monster does wipe out the entire lobby. There's no real reason for me wanting this in. I just think it'd be neat, because sometimes I never see Double Trouble, and I think with the addition of choosing who your partner is, I think it could work out pretty well. This is something I personally want, just to experiment more with editing. But yeah, I think it'd be cool to have shit like a free cam mode. Maybe you're gonna have like more privileges as the server owner. I don't know. I've always thought that banners could be tied in with this a little bit, where getting a specific achievement or badge unlocks a unique banner. The only problem is that I'm not quite sure what kind of achievements the game could come up with that isn't something as lazy as getting a gold or diamond prestige on a monster or being a last standing survivor. As for something like the last one I just mentioned, I think it'd be pretty easy for someone to just cheat this out with a friend playing monster or something. I don't know. Achievements could be cool if implemented well, but in a game like this, where there's an entire grind system and whatnot, it's not really needed at all. But still, could be cool. I think the last standing mechanic could be tweaked a bit. Or, you know, just whenever you kill a survivor, when there's like 3 seconds left on the clock. I feel like you should just have an increased amount of time whenever you kill someone, whenever the time is extremely low. There's been too many games where I've gone last standing, but I'm like across the entire map, and the monster doesn't even have enough time to rotate and chase me. And I think that's kind of lame. This is something that doesn't need to be included in game modes like Double Trouble, but in Solo Monster, I think it would be neat that whenever you kill a player, the timer is never lower than like 30 to 45 seconds. So for example, if you were to kill someone, whenever there's 30 seconds remaining, it gets increased like it normally does. But if you kill someone when the timer has like 5 seconds left, the timer goes to at least 30 seconds or 45 seconds, depending on what the threshold the devs want it to be. I don't know, just some sort of solution where a monster has at least some sort of fighting chance when the timer is that low.